It was supposed to be the start of a holiday break. Christmas was less than a week away. For most families, December 19th, 2017, was about wrapping presents and planning dinners. But for the Holmes family of Arvada, Colorado, that date became a wall, a hard stop. 17-year-old Nathaniel Holmes walked into Hidden Lake High School just before noon. He was late. He spoke briefly to the principal, and then he vanished. Not like a runaway who packs a bag and sneaks out at midnight. He just evaporated. He left behind his phone, his money, his iPad, even his favorite hoodie. For 8 years, the narrative was simple. A troubled teen walks out of school and disappears into the ether. A tragedy, a mystery. But in 2025, that narrative shattered. Because Nathaniel Holmes, the boy everyone was looking for, wasn't exactly missing. He was hiding. And recently, he didn't surface as a victim. He surfaced as a defendant in a federal courtroom. This is the story of a young man who ran so far and so fast that he disappeared from his own life. This is the disappearance of Nathaniel Holmes. To understand how a kid gets lost, you have to look at where he started. Nathaniel James Holmes was born on November 5th, 2000. By all accounts, he had a childhood most kids would envy. His father, Ben Holmes, is a professional musician, a bagpiper. This wasn't a dysfunctional home falling apart at the seams. Ben had sole custody of Nathaniel and his siblings after a divorce, but the family unit was tight. They traveled the world. We're not talking about camping in the backyard. They went on month-long safaris in Africa. They scuba dived in the Virgin Islands. They lived in Scotland. Nathaniel was a reflection of his father. He learned to play the bagpipes. There is footage of him playing alongside Ben at the Colorado Renaissance Festival. His father wrote a tune and played it with his son right next to him. Ben later said it was one of the proudest moments of his life. But the fairy tale hit a speed bump in high school. Nathaniel was bright, but he struggled with the pacing of traditional public school. He said it was too slow. His parents tried online schooling, but that required self-motivation that Nathaniel struggled to find. So they landed on a solution, a fresh start, Hidden Lake High School in Westminster. It was an alternative school designed for students who needed a different path to graduation. He started in November 2017. But 5 weeks later, everything was different. The happy kid who traveled the world seemed drained. He was tired, detached. The family noticed a shift they couldn't quite explain. It was a weekend. Ben noticed something was off with Nathaniel. He suspected his son had taken something, later confirmed to be a Xanax. It was the first time his father had caught him using hard drugs. Ben was upset. He told Nathaniel they were going to have a serious conversation when he got home from school on Tuesday, December 19th. He took away Nathaniel's car privileges after a minor fender bender. To make matters worse for a 17-year-old, his phone was broken. Ben had promised him a new one for Christmas, but for now, Nathaniel was isolated. No car, no phone, no privacy. December 19th arrived. His mother, Wendy, dropped him off at school. But Nathaniel didn't head to class. He went to the principal's office. He told the principal he needed to talk to a friend. He seemed nervous about something. The principal told him no, get to class. So Nathaniel turned around and walked right out the front door. He walked to a nearby park, next to a library. He approached a stranger, a woman, and asked to borrow her phone. This is where the red flags start flying for investigators. He called his mother, Wendy, but he didn't ask for help. He didn't cry. He told her, and I'm paraphrasing here, "Don't pick me up. I'm getting a ride with a friend of Dad's." It was a lie, a calculated, calm lie. There was no friend of Dad's. That was the last time anyone in his family heard his voice. He handed the phone back to the stranger, walked away from the park, and stepped into the cold Colorado winter. He took nothing. No coat? In a Colorado December? He left his backpack, his wallet, and his prized iPad on his bedroom floor. When his mom showed up for pickup at the end of the day, the school informed her Nathaniel had never made it to class. The panic set in immediately. The immediate assumption was foul play, or an accident. The weather was freezing. But the Westminster police had a different theory right out of the gate. They believed Nathaniel was a runaway. There was no evidence of abduction. He walked out willingly. He lied to his mom willingly. But his family refused to accept the runaway label. Ben Hames became a ghost hunter of sorts. He put 20,000 miles on his Jeep. He drove through the worst neighborhoods in Colorado, checking homeless shelters, handing out flyers, talking to police officers. He couldn't stop. He told reporters it was an open, bleeding wound. His sister, Hannah, became his voice online. She told News Nation, "I do think he's out there. I do think he's going to hear these messages. I hope somebody would show him how much my family misses him." Years passed. Birthdays came and went. The family kept his room exactly the way it was. His father tried desperately to hack into Nathaniel's iPad, hoping for a clue, a message, a search history, something. But he couldn't guess the password. The device remained a brick, and the silence remained deafening. There were rumors. The family believed he might have fallen in with a bad crowd. Drugs, possibly homelessness. There were a few tips to the police over the years, but they led to dead ends. For the true crime community, Nathaniel Holmes became a cautionary tale. A photo of a smiling, blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy. A missing poster that faded in the Colorado sun. Most of us assumed the worst. We assumed that a 17-year-old with no money and no phone in winter couldn't survive. We were wrong. Fast forward to 2025. The world had largely moved on, except for the Holmes family. But in October of 2025, the name Nathaniel Holmes popped up on a docket that no one expected. It wasn't a missing person report. It was a federal indictment. In the Middle District of Florida, Jacksonville Division, Nathaniel James Holmes appeared in court. Not as a victim, as a defendant. Let me read you the timeline from the court records, because this is where the story breaks reality. On October 10th, 2025, a bench trial was completed for United States versus Nathaniel James Holmes. He waived his right to a jury. There were forensic psychological evaluations submitted to the court. Wait, back up. How did a missing teenager from Colorado end up in the Florida federal court system as a 24 or 25-year-old man? The details of the charges are sealed in many of these documents, marked as dangerousness hearings. But here is what we know. Nathaniel wasn't missing. He was hiding. He had constructed a life, or perhaps an existence, far from Colorado. He had been living under the radar for nearly 8 years, and at some point, he ran afoul of federal law. The court documents show a series of status conferences throughout late 2025 and into 2026. On January 21st, 2026, a judge signed an order regarding the finding of dangerousness and conditional release. He was released from FMC Butner, that's a federal medical center, no later than January 23rd, 2026. He was ordered to report to probation in Jacksonville. Think about the irony for a second. For 8 years, his father drove 20,000 miles looking for him. The police ran down leads, nonprofits made posters, and the whole time, Nathaniel was navigating the underground of American life, eventually landing in the crosshairs of the FBI or the U.S. Marshals. This brings us to the hardest question. Why? Why would a kid from a wealthy, traveling-loving family choose to vanish into thin air? Why leave a father who played bagpipes with you, a sister who cried for you on camera? Let's look at the data points we have from 2017. He was struggling. The pressure to succeed at a new school, the loss of freedom from the car accident, the isolation of having no phone. And then, the drug use. His father caught him taking a Xanax, and his father was angry. Ben admitted he told Nathaniel, "We are going to have to discuss this when you get home." Nathaniel had 24 hours to stew in that dread. Maybe it wasn't fear of punishment. Maybe it was shame. When you come from a good family, a family that travels to Africa and plays Celtic music, there is a specific weight to failure. Nathaniel might have felt he was the broken link in the chain. He didn't run away to something. He ran away from the conversation. He ran away from the disappointment. He ran away from the look in his father's eyes.
In the world of true crime, we often look for villains. We look for the stranger who lured him away. But the court records from 2025 suggest the villain in Nathaniel's story was Nathaniel. He didn't want to be found, and he was willing to live a harder, lonelier life just to avoid the confrontation of going home. The forensic psychological evaluations requested by the court hint at a man who is not a mastermind criminal, but perhaps someone who has been surviving with untreated trauma or mental health struggles for nearly a decade. As of the recording of this episode, Nathaniel Holmes is alive. He is no longer a missing person in the eyes of the law, though his family has yet to publicly confirm a reunion. The court docket shows hearings stretching into March of 2026. The justice system is untangling whatever happened to him during the lost years. How did he eat? Where did he sleep? How did he end up in Florida? Those are questions for the next chapter. But for now, the mystery has shifted. The question is no longer, where is Nathaniel Holmes? The question is, what happened to Nathaniel Holmes? And what about the family? What do you do with 8 years of grief when the person you were grieving is sitting in a courtroom? Ben Holmes once told a reporter, "I love him, and he can come home at any moment, and it would stop my heart from breaking." That moment has arrived, but the homecoming isn't a hug at the airport. It's a series of hearings about dangerousness and conditional release. It is a complicated, messy, human reality. The disappearance of Nathaniel Holmes is a cautionary tale for the digital age. It proves that in America, you can disappear if you want to badly enough. No witness protection program is needed. Just a lack of a phone and a determination to be alone. But it also proves that you can't outrun time. Eventually, the law catches up. Eventually, the past does too. Nathaniel thought he was leaving a life he couldn't handle, but he was really just postponing the ending. We don't know if he has spoken to his father yet. We don't know if he ever played the bagpipes again. But we do know that the boy in the missing poster is a man now, and he is no longer invisible. This is the end of the search for Nathaniel Holmes. But for the Holmes family, the hardest part, the forgiveness, the healing, and the truth, is just beginning. If you or someone you know is struggling with the urge to run, whether from family, legal trouble, or mental health, please reach out. You are not as invisible as you think you are, and there are people looking for you. This has been The Disappearance of Nathaniel Holmes.